Welcome to the Futures Friendly Show presented by Coolbet Canada. We have a loaded house tonight. Pat Gregoire here with Kris Abbott, Andrew Hustler Paterson, and Jake Bolin Moss. Before I bring you guys in, I'll talk to you, Kris, first. We obviously, as I mentioned, or the tweet just mentioned, we do have a contest. So not only are you getting some picks here, some hot takes, but you also have a chance to win a $50 Coolbet bonus. All you got to do, retweet the tweet that we just sent out, and you will be entered to win that contest. And also, you have to be following us at Coolbet Canada. So, Kris, I was just about to throw to you, but I will now. We also have a little bit of a promo going on, not just for the NFL, even though this is what we're all talking about here today with the NFL kicking off this Thursday, but it could also be with CFL and with college football. Tell the folks a little bit about the bet and get promo going on right now.
It's pretty straightforward, Pat. I mean, we've got bet $25 during the week on NFL, CFL, or college football, and you get a free $15 bet the next week. It's pretty simple. No messing around. You just need to go and make the bet. And as soon as you hit the $25 threshold, it doesn't have to be one $25 bet. It can be 25 $1 bets. I'm pretty sure you can do that. But any cumulative of $25, you'll get a $15 free bet added right away after those bets are settled, and you can get one of those per week. So that'll be running all the way through the CFL, the college football, right up to the Super Bowl. So that'll be every single week, and then we'll have a few other things to talk about as we go throughout the season.
That does sound great. You can also find that on our Twitter as well. Or if you just go to coolbet.com, you can click that promotions page and all the information will be there. It's a Coolbet live show. So obviously our man Hustler is always on location, and it looks like he's at Arrowhead right now. Huss, I know you're fired up for the NFL season, but most notably the Revenge Tour. It all starts this week. You got to be pumped to have NFL back, right?
Dude, I feel like I'm in an airport right now waiting to go like to Hawaii or something, like the destination that we've been waiting for a long time. It's finally here, but due to unforeseen circumstances, the flight's been delayed just a little bit. It's delayed. This, to me, honestly, guys, is maybe the best weekend of the year. I mean, as a football guy, first and foremost, we had college football start last week. Best 2 weekends of the regular season of the year in the Canadian Football League. Kris is coming out to the Peg for the weekend. We're going to do a live lock shop on Friday, Banjo Bowl on Saturday, and then the full week 1 slate on Sunday. And of course, we can't forget about the kickoff game just to wet the whistle on Thursday night. The Cowboys and the Buccaneers going at it. Honestly, one of my favorite weeks of the sporting calendar. Everyone's in first place right now. Your team, your fantasy team. Yes, your dreams and hearts will be broken as we go through 18 weeks. But right now, everybody's got a shot. I'm jacked up, as you can see.
Absolutely, we all are. And we'll bring in our last panelist for the evening, Jake Bolin Moss. Jake, I know you're fired up. Mac Jones, Patriots, new quarterback. Excited for maybe the Patriots to be back on top of the division, but my Buffalo Bills have something else to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow up Huss there, but yeah, excited for the Patriots this season. Excited for the AFC East. Excited to see what happens. It's going to be an interesting season. A lot of new guys, a lot of new quarterbacks, and a lot of new old faces in new places. We know Julio Jones off the Titans. They picked up Bud Dupree as well from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So things like that. It's going to be an interesting season, and I'm excited to get it going here with the NFL Futures Frenzy.
All right. Well, I think we are all ready to go. We see a lot of people strolling into the stream now. So again, if you want to enter that contest, all you got to do, hit that retweet button. Make sure you're following us as well. And if you want to throw in any of your best bets, or, maybe chirp us for some of our bad bets that you don't agree with, the comments are always open as well. Feel free to chime in and be featured on the show. So let's start things off. I know we all have some win totals, and as you know, you can go to coolbet.com right now, and there are a ton of futures and options to bet. So let's start with the win totals. Huss, I'm going to go to you first. Give us a few win totals that you like for the season here.
Well, I mean, we've been poring over these for the last few weeks on the Lock Shop, and I kind of narrowed it down to 3 that I like, that I'm betting right now. And needless to say, it's taken quite a bit of evaluation and discussion to whittle it down to 3. The first one I'll go to is the Niners over 10.5 wins. And I mean, this team was 6-10 last year. I mean, it's a huge number. And to be honest, I had the sticker shock at that number originally and was thinking, fading them. I do really like the Rams. I think that they are, I mean, this team, this division overall is so tight. I could give you a salient argument by any one of these 4 teams could win, but I really do think it's going to come down to the Niners and the Rams. But the reason why I like this prop for the Niners for the schedule is from going through their schedule, because they had such a tough season last year with the loss of the quarterback and everything that happened around them. They're playing a fourth place schedule. So, I mean, they starting it off against the Lions. They get the Eagles. They do have NFC North matchups, and they do have the Packers, although that's a home game. Hasn't been a great spot for Aaron Rodgers in the past going out to San Fran. Seahawks, Cardinals, Colts, Bears, Cardinals, Rams, Jags, Vikings, Seahawks, Bengals, Falcons, Titans, Texans, and Rams. I mean, when I go down this list and giving respect to the other teams in that division, I mean, I think the Niners are a good enough team to go at least 500 in the division, if not a little bit higher. When you look at the other games on the slate and realizing we often look like idiots 2 weeks into the season because everything we thought was one way is somewhere else. But honestly, I just look at that schedule, and to me, that number, and now it makes sense because of some of the teams that they're playing on the board. So, listen, I think I think Shanahan is going to have his defense back. I mean, injuries can, as they've done in the past for Niners, can completely screw this up. But all things being equal, I think their talent on the defensive side of the football makes them a borderline elite team. I think they've got one of the great offensive minds in the National Football League calling the shots. And I think they've got their franchise quarterback ready to go when he is ready, which I think is going to make Jimmy Garoppolo that much more locked in to do the bottom line is what he's there to do, and that's win football games right now. So I love over 10.5 for the Niners. I think 11-6. And the other thing about these numbers is we cannot forget that this is now a 17-game season. So there's that extra game, which is sort of, you have to kind of keep going back and really look at the schedule. So I'm in on the Niners over 10.5. On the other side of things, I realize I believe it's the lowest number, and I'm still going under on the Texans for the season. Tyrod Taylor is now the starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson, I can't see any circumstances where he actually plays for the Texans this year. I think even if they get the green light to play him, I don't think they do it, and I think they then go and try and trade because they were moving off him anyways before half the masseuses in the state of Texas decided to, tell him that he hadn't been behaving himself in the massage room. So to me, this Texans team has been decimated, got a rookie head coach, which I don't have a lot of faith in. And when you look at their players, I mean, I guess you got a backfield of Philip Lindsay and David Johnson and Mark Ingram. I mean, 2 yards in a cloud of dust, boys. I don't know how they're going to win. I went down the list. Even they're a home underdog to Jacksonville in week 1. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about the plight of the Texans, I mean, we could even give them the 2 games against Jacksonville. I don't know where the other wins are. I guess there's an outside chance they could push this at 4, but I would put a heavy piece on the fact that they don't get to 5. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to be maybe the safest under, even though it's the lowest number. And then the other one that I love is the WFT. Washington, I gave them out and bet them at 3-1 on Coolbet, which was a way better number than any other place I saw online only about a couple weeks ago. Last week it was plus 275. Now it's plus 230. I'm not sure the value is there at plus 230 than it was at 275 or 3-1, but I do like the WFT to get over 8.5 wins. And at the same time, I like them at plus 160 to make the playoffs. I mean, to me, they're a team with an elite defense. They've got some great offensive skill players. I mean, in Gibson, I'm a big fan of. Terry McLaurin, I think, is a stud. Samuel's there now. And the bottom line is, like, we don't need Ryan Fitzpatrick to go in and be Patrick Mahomes. They need a competent quarterback, which they have not had. I mean, Taylor Heineke, to his credit, I thought really balled out in the playoffs and, made them believe that this is a guy that, could be part of the future. But they got Ryan Fitzpatrick to come in and, just sort of hold the fort down, not turn the ball over, get the ball into their playmakers' hands. And I think that this division is quite weak too. I mean, as I said, Cowboys certainly have a lot of offensive talent, but I do like them to win the division. But as far as for bets that I'm feeling pretty good about giving out right now, I think they're a playoff team on the back of that defense and the coaching. I think the offense won't screw it up for them as they did done before. And in a division with the Lions and with the Eagles, regardless of what you think of the Cowboys, in a 17-game season, 9 wins are absolutely there. So give me the over 8.5 for WFT, and I also like them to make the playoffs at plus 160.
Beautiful. I know there's a few of us that are pretty high on Washington. So with that being said, Kris, I know you're pretty high on them. Before you get into your win totals, I know you have a couple other bets on them.
Yeah, it's probably a good time to talk about it. Like, I'm the same way. I like them to win the division. I like them over their win total. In fact, I like putting a little bit on them for the NFC and plus 6,500 to win the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not saying they're a favorite to win, but when you look at all the teams that are in front of them, which is literally like 27 teams in the league, Washington is being severely undervalued at Coolbet right now. I'm going to put a little piece on plus 6,500. And, Huss laid it out pretty good, but I love their defense, right? They might have the most dynamic defensive player in the league right now, only going into his second year. And I think you're right about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't think he gets near the credit he deserves. When he came out of the Miami Dolphins lineup, they were not the same team. Him and Ron Rivera are both leaders of men, which I think in this day and age is something that is a lost art. It's really hard to rally millionaires. And I still think these two guys can do it. And I think that, as well as some of the other things that Hustler laid out, are really good signs for the Washington football team.
Yeah, I'm big on them as well. I also have them to win the division as well. So I think we're all pretty financially invested in the football team. So Kris, but I think you have one play you like for win totals.
Mm-hmm. I love Las Vegas. I even love the colors. This is not sponsored by Red Bull, although we'll take it. I love the city of Vegas. Everyone knows that. They are not going to win 7 football games this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think their division is much improved. I think the Denver Broncos are going to be sneaky, and I think the Chargers are going to be much better. So it's possible that they go 0-6 in the division. And we talk about their schedule. They do have a chance to open up 2-0. Like, I really do think with that first game at Allegiant against the Ravens, they should get a boost there. They could get one off the Steelers, who I'm not sold on. But then the schedule gets a little tougher. I think Philadelphia are probably better than we're giving them credit for. I think they're definitely better than the Ravens. They play Washington. They have to go to Cleveland. So I said Ravens, I meant Raiders. So I think 7 wins is a lot to ask for this dysfunctional team that includes a head coach that is clearly now, 2 to 3 years, whatever it is, back into the NFL experiment for John Gruden. Like, he doesn't have it, and he doesn't have a quarterback. Josh Jacobs hasn't been the guy that we hoped he was going to be coming out of Alabama. There's flashes there, and Darren Waller, I think, is a great fantasy player because he's going to get lots of targets in the end zone. But outside of that, I can't do it with this Vegas team. There's too many holes for me, so I'm gonna be betting against them all season.
Hard to argue that, and we'll wrap things up with our win totals, or almost wrap up. Jake, I think you also like an under, but with another team on the other side of the country.
Yeah, I'm going under with the Jacksonville Jaguars, 6.5. Coming off a 1-15 season, not too great. Obviously, they upgraded the quarterback position. They go get Trevor Lawrence. They bring in Urban Meyer. They hope he's going to turn it around. I just don't see a team turning it around and adding 6 wins to their schedule, even with the extra game, like Huss mentioned a little earlier on. You look at their schedule, and you look at their pretty much must wins. If we're looking at their must wins, they got to beat the Texans twice, the Jets, the Bengals, the Falcons, and the Broncos. That only gets them 6 wins. So find a 7th win here. Colts twice, Titans twice, Cardinals, Dolphins, Seahawks, Bills, 49ers, Rams, Patriots. I don't see it happening, even with the new Lawrence and Meyer connection. I think they're going to need a couple years to kind of build it all up in Jacksonville. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't see them getting over 6.5 wins. So I'm taking them under 6.5.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to even see how long Urban Meyer lasts in the NFL. I mean, Kris, you mentioned it. Leaders of men leading millionaires. This isn't college football. The recruiting doesn't come into play. And you can't coach the same way that the Meyers, the Sabins, coach in college to guys that are making millions and millions of dollars. I just don't see it. I think they're going to be much improved, but I totally agree with you, Jake, there. I really like that pick. I'm going to stay for my win total. I'm going to stay in the state of Florida, but I'm going with the Dolphins under 9.5 wins. Kris, I know you're all in on fade Tua. I think he's going to be better this year. I think the team is going to be improved this year, but still, they're just a team to me that you add Jalen Waddle. That's great. He's going to be a great player. There's other moves that they made. I don't see on this schedule where you get to 9.5. They add Will Fuller. Great. I love Will Fuller. Notre Dame Irish alum. But when was the last time Will Fuller played a full season of football? He's already going to be missing that first game. So I don't think that offense is going to be nearly as improved as a lot of people think they are. I'm just not buying the hype. Under 9.5. I could see them winning 9, but to get to 10, I just don't see it, especially in a division where I think it's going to be much, much improved with the Patriots, obviously with a revamped offense and a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. We didn't see them last year due to COVID. A lot of guys did opt out. All right, so next up, let's go with Huss. Give us one of your next best picks. Doesn't matter what it is. Let's look on your board and see something that you like here and throw that out.
All right. Well, you know what? I know a lot of people have been getting busy in their fantasy drafts over the last couple weeks, and a guy that has been a fast riser is Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. Rookie running back. A lot of people seeing Melvin Gordon, ahead of him, with an expiring contract. He's been around for a while, and a guy that just has continually disappointed both fans and head coaches in the past, despite having a ton of talent. So I get why people are hot on Williams, and I see why people want him on their fantasy team. But when I look at his total rushing yard prop for the season at Coolbet, it's 800 yards. And realistically, he's a rookie going into the season without a starting position. It'll be Melvin Gordon's job to lose, which I am stating he's very capable of losing it. But at the same time, so many questions about a rookie coming into that position. Before we even get to how good he is and what he can do, what's his opportunity going to be like? How many touches is he even going to be getting early on? I think if Gordon fades, we could have some semblance of a three-headed monster. And to be honest, the other part of it is that I actually like Teddy Bridgewater. I think his just competence at the quarterback position with the ability to throw the football will allow them to get Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant into the game a lot more, which would mean less of a reliance on that running game. So you put all that together, and I just think this line is too optimistic for a guy that hasn't played and is not going into a starting job. So it's always fun to bet the overs because they're sort of the guys that you want to, you're pulling for, or guys that you like. But honestly, if you go back at the end of the season and go back looking at the props, I bet if you blindly bet unders, you'd probably end up ahead. And in a situation like this, with a committee, with a guy ahead of him as an unproven player going into the NFL that might take time before the coaches even trust to give him the ball 15 times a game, I have a hard time laying an over on 800 yards for Javonte Williams. So give me the under on the Denver running back.
Kris, I believe you have an under on a running back, but certainly not a rookie.
No, not a rookie, but every year he plays about the same number of snaps as a rookie the last couple of years. Man, oh man. Ezekiel Elliott, guys, we keep hearing it over and over, don't put stock in running backs. They have a very short shelf life, et cetera, et cetera. He was terrible last year. People, and especially fans of the Cowboys, were calling for Tony Pollard to be RB1 there. And he's been good when he's been in there. I think Zeke's a couple of bad games away from the fan base losing their marbles. And there's going to be pressure on this Cowboys management and staff to get it done this year, maybe even more so than last year. When Dak went out, it was like, all right, well, whatever. We'll see what we can do with Andy Dalton. There's pressure there to have success now. And if Ezekiel Elliott is not the player that he was 3-4 years ago, he's not going to get 1,100 rushing yards this season. So, given the injury history, given the struggles, given the fact that Tony Pollard's getting increased touches for this team, I would hedge my bet on the under rather than over for Zeke Elliott. Look, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope the Cowboys have a great year because it's better for the NFL when they do. But I'm not putting my money on it.
No, every time it seems like I buy into the hype of the Cowboys and this is going to be the year that they figure it out, and it never is. And I certainly don't think so as well. And obviously with all of us being very high on the football team, I think the same thing will happen again. Now we've been all unders right now for these team totals. Jake, I believe you have an over that you're really excited about.
Yeah, this one kind of jumped out at me. It was the first one I saw that I really, really liked. It's Keenan Allen over 1,075.5 receiving yards. He gets another season with Justin Herbert. 3 of his last 4 seasons, he's been well over 1,100 yards. And then last season's the one where he's off. He starts 13 games. He goes for 992, and he's really one start away from kind of hitting that number again, another 90-yard game, and he's there. I think this is one of the most underrated receivers in the game. I think one of the best route running receivers in the game in Keenan Allen. I think another year with Herbert, he'll be, I think 29 or 30 this year. So I think he's still got that prime running back age. And I like him to be probably 1,100 plus this year with an added game to the schedule. I just hope he can stay healthy. I think a 14, 15 game starts for Keenan Allen. He's over that 1,075.5 this season. Again, like he was back with Rivers a few seasons ago.
Pat, if I may, Pat, I'd like to jump in here because we're talking about one quarterback at SoFi Stadium, and I'm on the other one. I think Matthew Stafford is primed to have an absolutely massive year for the Rams. I think I've got his over passing yardage. Was that the prop I decided to go with?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, anything Matthew Stafford, I think get your money down on it. Now, this could end up as a beautiful freezing cold take later on in the football season, but I just look back to what he did with Detroit. He kept that team in games that had no business being in games, and they didn't win, but he kept them at least close a lot of the time. And this guy, to me, from what I saw when he was with Detroit, he knew he was up against it, but he did his absolute best. And now he's got all kinds of receivers around him in LA with a defense that should give him better field position each time out. I think this guy's going to have a phenomenal year. Comeback player of the year, most passing yards. Give me all the Matthew Stafford. I took him on my fantasy team, so I'm all in on the Rams, and I think both he and Justin Herbert could have phenomenal years out there.
Well, I'll say one thing about Stafford quickly. Let's not forget that Cam Akers is out. And I mean, right now they're trying to piecemeal together a running back situation. I mean, getting Sony Michel over there. It's obvious they don't have a lot of faith in Darrell Henderson right now. And here's the other thing. Sean McVay, I'm not saying he's one of the guys that always likes to tell everyone that he's the smartest guy in the room, but I'm pretty sure he thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room. And to be honest, credit to him, he usually probably is. The best way that he can show how much he was hamstrung by Jared Goff over the last couple of years is to let Matt Stafford roll this season. I'm with you, Chris. I mean, I really do think that this will be an exciting pass-heavy offense that puts up points the way the Rams were doing a couple years ago when they were back in those shootouts with the Chiefs and whatnot, and whatever it was, the 2019 season before things really went down for Jared Goff. So, and I guess the other thing about it is, and this we can talk about Rams futures in general, division, NFC, Super Bowl, they have put so much into this season. They're going to go 8 years, guys, without a first-round draft pick. That's never happened before in the history of the National Football League. And they've got some big-time players making big money right now. They've gone all in to get Matt Stafford. So I really think with an offensive mind like Sean McVay, without really a running game that I think you can count on, it is going to be on the shoulders of Stafford. And the other thing, Chris, that, when you're taking overs for the season, he's been incredibly durable. And that is one thing that, if you're talking about the quarterback position, looking at a number where a guy's going to need a solid season for 17 games, that has to be taken into consideration. And Matt Stafford, probably to his detriment at times, has played through a lot of things for that Morbin franchise in Detroit. And now he gets a chance to show on a much bigger stage that, he was the number 1 overall pick. And, he's been a great player in a bad situation. And now is both his and Sean McVay's time to show that this trade was worth it. And I think that is, that will be reflected in his passing yards more than anything else that the Rams do this season.
There was days when he was a Detroit Lion that they could have dressed the 4 of us and put us on the offensive line, and we would have been just as successful. He took a lot of hits, but very rarely was he out long term. So I think you're right there. Now, how many does he have left on his dance card? We'll find out. But he shouldn't. It shouldn't be as bad for him this year for sure.
Yeah, I've been pretty high and pretty vocal about how high I'm on for them. I've got a few tickets, just the 2 that come to mind. I know I have a Super Bowl ticket for them, 14-1, and then I believe his MVP number, I got it at 16-1. I think it's down to 14-1. So won't spend too much time on the Rams. We all know we're super high on them, but Huss, I know you're gonna like this one for my total. For a player prop, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire over 900.5 yards. Last year, just as a rookie, in only 13 games, he went over 800 yards. You add in that extra game, and I assume he's going to have more production in his second season. The O-line has beefed up quite a bit in the offseason, something that they were very adamant in doing, and something that I heard just the other day. In 13 of the last 17 seasons, an Andy Reid-led offense has produced a top 10 fantasy running back. So he's obviously going to be that guy if that trend is going to continue. And another thing that I like about Kansas City as well is they're going to be winning a lot of football games. They're going to be running the ball late, and I think Edwards-Helaire is going to be a big part in that. And 900, it does seem like a big number, but as I mentioned, you factor in that extra game. I think we're about to see him become a star in this league, and I think it starts this year.
Yeah, well, CEH burned a lot of guys last year. I mean, both fantasy-wise and people that thought that he was just going to roll in to be a top 10 player right off the bat. And part of it, as you mentioned, was, a real issue on the offensive line. And there was no better example of that when you saw early in the season the amount of carries that Edwards-Helaire had within the 2 yards of the goal line and wasn't able to get in. They changed the way they utilized it. They used Darrell Williams more in that. But with Le'Veon Bell out right now, Darwin Thompson got cut. It really does seem like the opportunity is going to be there for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to prove that he can be a 3-down back. And if he is, that's almost a given if he doesn't miss any time, Pat.
Yeah, Hustler, I know you've been flat out working today, so I don't know if you saw it, but teammate of the year, Le'Veon Bell, is gone. They shipped him out this afternoon.
Exactly, so, on the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who else is going to carry the ball? So I think even when Bell came in last year, there was probably downs late in the season where, maybe you'd look for Edwards-Helaire, but they're trying to get Le'Veon Bell going because, like we talked about with Ezekiel Elliott, like at one point he was like the guy. He was the running back that everybody coveted. And he's turned out, to be a bit of a Ricky Jarrett, and nobody really wants him around, and so be it. But I think that's a great bet, Pat.
Jake, I do believe when we were on the Rams, I just want to mention that you did have them to win the NFC West at plus 215. So we want to get that down on the record. We won't spend too much time on the Rams, but we'll go into one of your next picks. You have a number that I really like as well. I was kind of surprised when you sent over the picks for a Defensive Player of the Year award.
Yeah, so I'm going TJ Watt at 12-1 plus 1,200 over at Coolbet. And I think the reason for this number right now is the holdout situation. So he's not quite in a holdout. He's been at practice, but he's only been doing individual drills. He's waiting on a contract extension. They're working on it, but they're not sure what's going to happen once the season gets going here. Is he going to start the season? Is he not going to start the season? I think that's where you see this number, but I think right now it's value. Watts are gamers. We've seen them. We've seen JJ. I believe the other brother, I think he's in Pittsburgh now, or he was in Pittsburgh recently. And then there's TJ, who was a stud last year, led the league in sacks, had 15. He's only increased his sack numbers every year. Bud Dupree's out of town. I mentioned him earlier. So I think it's time for TJ Watt to shine on that defensive line in Pittsburgh. He's going to be their go-to guy. They need a sack. They need a big play, forced fumble, whatever it is. He's going to be the guy. I have him Defensive Player of the Year, 12-1. I just hope he starts the season in the black and gold, no holdouts. But I think they'll get it done. There was a lot of talk about Pittsburgh not signing their guys once the season gets going, but there has been shown that if they have started negotiations, they'll continue negotiations and maybe get something done within the first couple weeks and get him going for a season that really we don't know what's going to happen with the Steelers. So hopefully that defense holds strong. TJ Watt's the guy.
Well, speaking of that division, I know I'm kind of going off the board here, but I think that division there in itself is one of the more intriguing divisions for me. Just looking at the AFC North division winner odds, Baltimore plus 120 right now, the Browns plus 135, the Steelers at plus 500, and then the Bengals at 28-1. Kris or Haas, you guys can jump in here. If you had to, pick one of them, value aside, whatever it is, who would you be leaning towards to win this division here?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm on Cleveland, and I would have been on Cleveland before, and I'm on Cleveland now. I'll be honest, I missed this. At what point did the odds switch? Because for the first 3 weeks when we were talking about this, Cleveland was the favorite to win the AFC. And to be honest, I think that makes sense. I know we're all used to Baltimore having the elite defense. I'll tell you what, Cleveland's defense is legit. They might get lit up in week 1 against the Chiefs, but they'll be good over the course of the year. So I was really surprised when you mentioned that and we saw how that's moved lately, especially, Kris, when you think about what's happened in Baltimore lately with J.K. Dobbins being out for the year. I mean, they've been losing guys every couple days in training camp. I have yet to wrap my head around what would be the positive momentum for the Ravens, considering what's happened over the preseason that would push them ahead of the Browns as a favorite in the AFC North.
Oh, man, if you look at the rosters top to bottom, I don't get it. I don't get it. The more I think about it, the more maybe a Hollywood Brown over a receiving prop. I don't even know what the number is, but I don't know who else they have. Like Mark Andrews forgot how to catch the ball last year. Miles Boykin's good for like one catch inside the red zone every week. But yeah, they lost J.K. Dobbins, who was awesome. He was dynamite. You got him and Jackson back there like scat backs getting it done. But now you don't. You've just got Lamar, who's eventually, guys, I've been saying it for like 3 or 4 years now, but Lamar's going to get popped on one of those runs eventually, although he's definitely cashed the over on the time I thought it was going to happen. But yeah, no, like Baker's good, guys, and he's got good receivers, and their running backs are unbelievable, and their defense is mean. I don't know. It's just because they're the Cleveland Browns. Like if this was the Kansas City Chiefs, they'd be minus 300 in the division.
Yeah, you stick them in an NFC division that, mixed up with no other truly elite team. And, we'd be having this conversation. The Browns do carry a lot of baggage, guys. I mean, that just goes without saying. But, I mean, I think they got a lot of the ghosts, or the monkeys off their back. I mean, kicking the crap out of Pittsburgh in the playoffs the way they did. And, I mean, hell, if Andy Reid doesn't have the stones to throw a pass on 4th down with Chad Henne, they were right there in that playoff game after Mahomes got hurt. So, listen, I think the Browns are legit. I absolutely think they're a playoff team. I expect them to win this division. As I said, I was stunned to see the way that number sort of switched over the past few weeks.
Yeah, and one last thing about that division, like I think Pittsburgh's going to have a really, really bad year. Like I know we're not expecting a lot out of Cincinnati, but I just don't see it in Pittsburgh. I know they added some pieces, some new pieces, so it remains to be seen what happens. But, guys, Ben Roethlisberger's held together with tape and hope right now, and I don't know that he's going to be able to play more than half this season. Obviously, a gamer, obviously tough as they come, obviously a Hall of Fame career, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it there.
Kris, you didn't see Ben? He actually worked out this summer. He showed up in camp in shape for the first time in his 18-year career. He's lost weight. It's new Ben.
Round is a shape too, Hustler. Round is a shape.
No PF Changs this offseason. No PF Changs. So, no, I agree with you guys. I do just think in the back of my head, it's the Cleveland Browns. And when you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers and when you think of the Baltimore Ravens, these are just franchise that win. And I honestly think just looking at the Browns roster, you could look at it. You said it, Kris, from top to bottom, defensively, offensively, but not just in this division. You could argue that they have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. It's remarkable how good this offense is. And even like you said, they're mean on defense too. So I think at plus 135, I really like that value. And I don't know what their win total is, but I would definitely take a look at that as well. Huss, you're in Arrowhead. I know you got a couple of props. We know you got your.
We're ready for the Browns. We're ready for the Browns in week 1, P.
Well, so you have I believe it's 2 props here.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I could give you a reason why I think the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl, although it's a short number. It's not fun, but I'll give you 2. One is a short number, but I still think there's value for it. And another one is sort of a correlated number. Mahomes, 5-1 to win MVP. When you look at the numbers right now, it's Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Brady and Josh Allen, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, Lamar, Dak, Herbert. I mean, all quarterbacks right up at the top. Mahomes, on any given day, just coming down to talent, weapons, all of that, has a leg up on these guys. And I know Aaron Rodgers had an amazing season last year, and I think there was some, it was a bit of romanticism about how long he's played and probably deserved another one. And, by the end of the season, I wasn't losing my mind that, he didn't get it. But Mahomes, any year he plays, is probably the MVP. And if the Chiefs have the season that I think that they will, especially after losing the Super Bowl the way they did, I think not only will they be putting up a great record, but they'll also be putting up some ridiculous numbers in the AFC this year. And I think Mahomes now, even though he's so young, that with an MVP, with a Super Bowl MVP, with a Super Bowl ring, he now is in that category with Rodgers, with Brady, where you really have to beat him if you want to do it. And I think that is going to be really tough. So even at 5-1, I like Mahomes to win the MVP. But what's interesting, and I'll put this to the next one, the receiving yards leader for the season, Travis Kelce at 13-1 plus 1,300. And you're thinking, man, a tight end doing that? That seems a little bit crazy. Well, let's go back to last year's receiving. Travis Kelce finished 82 or 120 yards out of first and didn't play the 16th game of the season because he was done. So I have the thing about the Chiefs this year is not only are they going to be obviously trying to get the number 1 seed and go back and win this thing, but I think they realize that this is a real special team, a special group that's already done some incredible things. And now it's time to get Mahomes another MVP. And you know what? Being the guy that helped the first tight end ever lead the lead in receiving would go a long way to doing that, and would, of course, them to win a lot of games. And I also know the way they feel about Kelce. They want him to get something like that, to do something that no tight end has ever done before. And don't think that that isn't lost on Andy Reid either. And having a coach that buys into that stuff is important as well. Sammy Watkins is gone this year. Of course, you've got Tyreek Hill. I think Mecole Hardman is going to be more involved in it, but I think you will see a bit more Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And, the Kelce is just such a nightmare matchup for so many defenses that if they don't have somebody that can go in and literally stick on him and, minimize his damage, because he's always going to get his. I mean, we could be seeing some big, big games with massive numbers from Kelce. And I think the Chiefs are thinking about that right now. And if he gets off to a good start, he'll absolutely be in that conversation. So when you look at guys like, Terry McLaurin's at plus 950, Justin Jefferson's 1150, Kelce belongs in that conversation. He's got the best quarterback in the league that is going to throw for 45 or 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. He's the number 1 target. It makes sense that he'd be in the mix. So I think there's great value at Kelce at 13-1 to lead the league in receiving, despite being a tight end.
That's hard to argue. Now I'm going to throw out my one. I already did throw out one of them, but I do have another ticket on an MVP, and it should come as no surprise that I'm in on Josh Allen at 12-1. I just think the NFL, it's so storyline based, and I think that if the Bills can continue to do what they did last year and build off, and Josh Allen can continue to show that last year wasn't a flash in the pan and that he is an elite quarterback. And if the Buffalo Bills can, if they can win that division again and maybe even push for that number 1 seed, I think there's an opportunity here that Josh Allen might get some votes just based on that. And yes, I know The safe play is like what you said at plus 500 with Patrick Mahomes. But this is why you make these plays. This is why I see a little bit of value here. And obviously I'm biased. I'm a part of the Bills Mafia, but I do truly think that, and he also got paid. He's got to prove that he is the guy, that he should be in the same conversations as these other quarterbacks. So I think I really like actually, this is actually not even on my card, but I like what Sean McDermott's been able to do. I think that's a great pick to win.
That's the best value bet on the coaching board. I'll just say right now, Feinberg, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago when he brought this up, and we went and looked, and it was a big group of guys at 15-1, and then there was McDermott at 17-1. And when you think about the Bills, the strides the Bills have made under this management group and this head coach, some would say that he probably should have won it last year. These are the sort of awards that often you sort of get back pay. And if they go 12-5 or 13-4 and get the 1 or the 2 seed in the division and are proven themselves back-to-back years as an elite team, there will be a lot of voters that say McDermott deserves it. Maybe we overlooked him last year and give it, kind of like Fleury winning the Vezina this year. I mean, probably deserved that sort of thing before, but got it this season after a great season. I guarantee you people will not be overlooking McDermott if he's there. I'm glad you brought that up. That coaching prop, everything else is so tough. I do see Shanahan's dropped from 15-13. He's now the favorite. But if you want an angle as to why there's a good reason, you've got a really good team. Voters probably maybe owe him a little bit more respect, and I think he'll get that if the team does it again this year. It's a prove-it season for the Bills, and if they do prove it, I think much like Josh Allen will certainly be in that mix for MVP as well, Pat.
Yeah, and I think you just even looking at the board, like you said, 17-1, and for whatever reason, we've seen a ton. Bill Belichick has now dropped 13-1. Brian Flores was at the top. Now he's dropped to 17-1. But for whatever reason, Sean McDermott has stayed at 17-1 since we've pretty much posted these odds. So I agree with you. It's a cliche, but he's built a culture that has changed the vibe around the Buffalo Bills. They're still the butt end of a lot of jokes, but now they're a team that you do have to take seriously. Now this is a place that players actually want to go and play. They'll actually will live in Buffalo or Orchard Park to play for a team and a coach like Sean McDermott. So I love that play there. But I also
one other quick thing on that. And keep in mind the division that they're in. The Patriots last year, they lost Brady. They had Cam in. Like the Patriots got a mulligan for being terrible last year. And for that reason, I'm not sure the Bills got as much respect as they deserve for winning the division and putting up the record that they did. Different story this year. They loaded up in the offseason. They did a ton of work in free agency. They spent a first-round pick on a guy that has earned the job. They cut Cam Newton. The expectations for the Patriots are completely different. And if the Bills can run away with this division and beat the Pats twice this year, the credit that they'll give from people voting on these awards will be far different than when they beat a Patriots team unlike any we'd seen in the Belichick era last season.
Absolutely. So I think that's pretty close to our entire cards. Jake, I do believe, and I should have brought this up when we were talking about the division, you have the Baltimore Ravens as a flyer here at 14-1 to win this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I had them as a flyer. You look at the top teams there, the Bucs, the Chiefs. There's not a whole ton of value there because you expect them to be back there. The Ravens were a team that stood out to me. Harbaugh's taken them to a Super Bowl before with a guy like Flacco. So I don't see why he couldn't take him with a guy like Lamar. Obviously, you guys big on the Browns. I'm also big on the Browns. But they were a team that stood out to me. I expect them to have another year with a solid defense. And you just got to hope that Lamar Jackson passing game becomes a little more prominent than the running game. Like Kris said, he is one hit away from being who knows what, right? We saw what happened with RG3 years ago. You never know. He's very different from the dual threat quarterbacks we've seen in the past, but it is a dangerous game that they're playing there in Baltimore. But they do win a lot of games. They're a double-digit win team since Lamar got there. I think they're still a double-digit win team again this year. And you never know when it comes to the NFL playoffs. Team gets hot at the right time. They stay healthy at the right time. We saw what the Bucs did last year. And I think the Ravens could be the type of team to do that. Going at, I believe, 14-1 I had them at.
Yeah, 14-1. And the thing with the Ravens too is they're built for the playoffs. I think the only thing that has maybe held them back in the last couple of years has been Lamar Jackson's play in the playoffs. But obviously with J.K. Dobbins going down, last year they were able to run the ball really well. They had an elite defense, and that's two, big recipes for success in the postseason. They were close to knocking off the Bills in that game as well. So they could have ended up where the Bills were. And I don't know, maybe they would have given a better game to the Chiefs than Buffalo did. So at 14-1, I mean, why not? I do agree with you. I think obviously when you see the Chiefs at plus 500 and the Bucs at plus 700, and then everything drops off from there, I think those are clearly the two best plays. So Chris, I'm going to ask you, I know you already have a flyer out on Washington. Is there any other value that you do see when it comes to Super Bowl winner, or someone better off, just taking the juice and going with the Chiefs or the Bucs?
Well, there's first of all, I think just to finish on Jake's thought there, like Lamar Jackson is a special athlete. Like there's a reason, he's avoided those hits that I was talking about earlier, because he's got like 360 degree, like, those cars with the 360 degree camera up top. Like, I feel like he can see it from everywhere. But so where I think the value comes in the Super Bowl futures will be an NFC team. I think the NFC is really weak this year. So with that, it's not going to be as difficult to pull one upset maybe on your way to a championship there. So I think the AFC is a much tougher division. I think so. There's some long shot, not so much long shot, but pretty good odd bets for NFC teams. Like even the Seahawks at 2,500. You got the Rams, 49ers, obviously in the same division there at 1,400. So I think those are teams. To watch out for. I mean, look, I love Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers as much as the next guy, but I don't think the Packers at plus 1,400 are a play for me there, considering the fact that the Dallas Cowboys play in arguably a weaker division, and you're getting them at 30-1. Ultimately, you're going to have to beat Tom Brady to get out of that conference. But I think if you're going to take a long shot, taking one from the NFC is smarter, because we know the Chiefs are going to be really good. We know the Bills are going to be really, really good. The Browns are going to be really, really good. So I think looking for an NFC long shot would be the way to go.
Huss, I know you're heavily invested financially and emotionally in the Chiefs. We have the Huss's special for them to run the table. And I know you're obviously high on them, but is there another bet that you would be thinking of taking? Maybe an emotional hedge here.
Well, this isn't even an emotional hedge. This is betting on a player and a team that I have a lot of respect for and makes me nervous at times as, a Chiefs fan in the AFC West, and it's the Chargers. And I'll tell you what, I like the Chargers to be a playoff team. I think that's laying 130 right now. I think they'll be a 10-win team, and I think they'll be in the playoffs. But there's one guy on the Chargers that fascinates me, and I think there's some real value. The caveat is he needs to play a full season, and the guy is Derwin James. To me, when Derwin James is in the lineup, he is one of the most dynamic and effective defensive players in the year. And I'll tell you what, I mean, he played a full season in 2018. He played 5 games in 2019, was injured, and then last season was knocked out in training camp and never played a game. James comes back in and plays at the level that we've seen before after missing this time. I think that he could absolutely be in the mix for the defensive player of the year at 21-1. On top of that, if he does that, and I truly believe that he'll be in that conversation if he can play a full season, because I think it'll be so obvious the difference that he makes to that team and that defensive unit. And listen, going up in a division and getting to go against Mahomes a couple times, you want a great chance to show on national television that you're back and you are a difference maker. He'll have that chance. So a little sprinkle on Derwin James at 21-1. But when you consider what I just said about how he's basically missed the last 2 seasons, if you're in on that, how about 30-1 on comeback player of the year? I mean, you look, it's so top heavy right now with Dak Prescott, and those, I don't want to say those odds are lazy, but quarterbacks just dominate. They suck up so much of the oxygen in the room. I'll tell you what, if the Chargers have the season that I think they're going to, and he leads them on the defensive side of the football we'll be talking a lot about Derwin James heading into December. And if that's the case, these numbers 21-1 and 30-1, I think will come down. So a small little sprinkle on a division rival for DPOY and the comeback player of the year.
Don't hate that. And I'll be quite honest. Coming into last year, I was not sold on Herbert just from watching him with Oregon. He didn't seem like he was a gamer to me. He was just a guy that was just there, but he has completely changed my opinion. Although I was all out on him when he shaved his head and got rid of the flow because he just looked like a normal guy and not a, QB1.
Good reason.
Of course. I have a dumb brain. I'm
out on that haircut.
Exactly. But I agree. And I think, it's, and again, like we said, these are just sprinkles, 34-1. Why not? Let's just we can quickly take a look at the odds right now. Chiefs, as we said, at the top, the Bucks, then it does, drop off. The Bills, like I did say, I did have a ticket on them. It has dropped a bit. It's at plus 1,000. I believe I got them at 14-1. The Packers at 14-1. The Ravens 14-1. The 49ers, they're interesting to me. I think that would be a team that I'd be considering sprinkling. An elite defense. It's just the quarterback play is something that probably is holding a lot of people back, including myself. And then you see the Rams, the Browns, Titans, Seahawks there. So it's certainly very interesting, but I just find right now, just there is a lot of quote unquote value out there. I just think right now, looking at the rosters and look at what we saw near the end of last year, I don't know how you bet against the Chiefs and the Buccaneers because how much better they were than everyone else in the NFL.
That being said, very rarely do you ever get one team, never mind two teams, going back to the big game. So, that's why they play the games, right? Just quickly on that, you showed the Niners and the Rams with the same odds at 14-1. It speaks going back to that schedule and that fourth place schedule for San Fran. You would think that if they had the exact same Super Bowl odds, they'd be pretty similar in the division. Well, San Fran's plus 165 and the Rams plus 215. I think that speaks to, the Niners having a little bit of a head start when it comes to that. And as we all know, home field matters a lot when it comes to the playoffs. So, if you had to pick between those two teams, just based on schedule right now, a bit of a nod to the Niners. But I think a lot of people will be on the Rams for the reasons we talked about before with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford getting together and so much on the line and so much invested from a Rams perspective.
All righty. Before we get going, anyone have any other sprinkles they want to put out there?
Matthew Stafford over 27.5 passing touchdowns. That's what we got. Let's go.
I love it.
That is awesome. Bet responsibly, of course. But before we get going as well, Huss, you already mentioned it. For those that are loyal listeners, which there are many of, the Lock Shop this week on Friday, it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, well, we got the big guy coming into town for the Banjo Bowl, and the other big guy, Dustin Nielsen, coming out to call the Banjo Bowl. So we figured week 1 NFL, all the boys are going to be in the peg. Let's get the gang together and bang out a live Lock Shop on Friday night once everyone gets here. So Chris, Dustin, and I will be together. We're doing it at Boston Pizza City Place, right downtown, nice and central, regardless of where you are in the area. Pop down there, have a few cold ones. We'll grab some wings, some pizza. We'll talk NFL Week 1. We'll bang out a Lock Shop, get that up on the pod and the video, and hang out with many of our listeners, both from Winnipeg Sports Talk and people that love the Lock Shop. So if you are in Winnipeg or maybe a Rider fan, some Saskatchewan coming in for the game and looking for a place to have a few beers and hang out with us, 7 o'clock Friday night, Boston Pizza City Place. Would love to see you there.
And there will be some Coolbet merch, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some Winnipeg Sports Talk merch floating around there as well.
You never know.
You never know. Well, that does it here as we are just approaching the hour mark. And Chris, as you mentioned, Chris will be there handing out Coolbet merch. But as we said, you still have 24 hours to retweet this stream. We will be giving out $50 in Coolbet bonuses to some select winners. So If you don't win one of those, maybe if you're in Winnipeg, you might be able to win a hoodie or a hat or anything like that. And Jake, I believe you have your best bet blog coming out before that as well. So keep an eye out. We'll be posting that to our website and, of course, on Twitter as well. And as Huss mentioned, yes, it is the Banjo Bowl. We have CFL this week, and we have another loaded college football slate as well. So don't forget, the Bet and Get promo is not just for week 1 of the NFL. It's the entire NFL season, but it's also the entire CFL and NCAA football season. So for everyone here at Coolbet Canada, I want to thank you for tuning in. For Pat Gregoire, Jake Bolin Moss, Andrew Hustler Paterson, and Kris Abbott, thanks for tuning in. And as always, stay cool.